Thank all of you for being here, for your concern. Was the meeting posted? Okay. Can we kill the music? There we go. Okay. All right. With just a few simple rules if we can. All right. We're going to have Christine O'Connor, the city solicitor, give a brief overview of the new rules that have been put together. Okay. After she does that, then I'm going to allow people that are in favor of the rules to speak first. I'm going to ask you to take into consideration that there's quite a few people here. Please listen to what the speaker is saying. If what he's saying is the same thing you want to say, then just get up and say ditto. You know, don't make everybody go through this. We'd like to be able to try to address this problem within a reasonable time limit. If you at any point in your presentation up here at the lectern have a question for the police department, for Christine, being the city solicitor, or any one of the commissioners, you may stop and ask it at any time, if that will help with the time frame. Okay? So, Madam Solicitor, are you ready?
Sure, I'll make this fairly brief. The rules have been changed, and the most significant change really pertains to an increase of general conditions. Of those changes to the general conditions, we now have patron entry hours and hours of entertainment. All licensed establishments shall end 1 hour prior to the licensed establishment closing time. That's for entertainment. Also, patrons shall not be allowed to enter or re-enter licensed establishments 1 hour prior to the licensed establishment closing time. There's also under 21 events. Excuse me, those events targeted for those under 21 will be prohibited. There is some increased training required for liquor establishments. There is also lighting issues that these establishments shall have to restore lighting, full lighting, 20 minutes prior to closing. There will be a limitation on service, which will be 30 minutes prior to the scheduled closing time, a so-called last call. There's also some regulations that speak to any changes, internal or external, of the use or structure of the premises. The License Commission has also carved out for itself or reserved for itself the ability to institute special conditions to licenses on a case-by-case basis if necessary. And those special conditions, it could be anything from things that were discussed in the past, a one drink per rule, video cameras, use of details and things of that nature. So those are, in a nutshell, some of the most significant changes to the rules.
Excuse me. Anything to add to it right now? All right.
Just one significant addition, I think, is that the establishments and the proposed regulations have the ability to choose what time they would like their license to end. So basically there's a fee for a 2 a.m. license, a 1 a.m. license, a midnight license, an 11 p.m. license, and the fee goes downward as the hours shrink. I just thought
But tell them that 1 o'clock, the hour, you know, the music and stuff.
good, but the hour still.
If you were to select one of the minor licenses after this, if it gets approved, you would still have to adhere to, you know, a 12 o'clock license would be 11:30, 11 to sound and everything. By 11:30, they're going out the door. Nobody's allowed in the building, you know. So by moving that license, the closing time, the actual closing time is still moved back. All right, I'm going to ask anyone that would like to speak in favor of these regulations. I'm going to ask you to come up to the podium, give me your name and address. Yes, sir, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Craig Himmelberger. I reside at 200 Market Street, Canal Place. I'd like to speak both in favor of these regulations, but also in question to the commissioners. My observation from having lived in proximity to most of the establishments that are the target of this sort of rule change is that the present rules are not strictly enforced, and in some cases not enforced at all. There have been decisions made by the board because a precedent has not occurred to let the violator of a license condition skate without any meaningful punishment whatsoever. I appreciate, Mr. Bayless, that you like to remind these people at every opportunity of their responsibilities, but when no substantial penalty follows these violations, it sends a very difficult message.
Can you give me an example of what you're talking about?
Well, there was a group of police officers came to the prior meeting about violations that occurred in several establishments, and I don't want to go into them by name.
No, wait a minute. A group of police officers came to a meeting with you
Here,
folks?
a license commission
Here,
meeting,
okay.
to be available
Yeah.
so that they could give testimony.
Talking about a compliance check.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about some underage serving violations at the Village Smokehouse.
Yeah, you're talking about...
Those are compliance checks by law, which are governed differently. I know you probably think that they're the same as real violations, but compliance checks by law are, and by the regulations established by the ABCC, are to be treated in an educational manner in the first instances. So, I mean, I know you may be speaking without knowing that, but if that changes your question, would that
No, it does
affect
not
your
change my
opinion in
question.
any way?
It's not a question.
Most of those places, it was...
Excuse me,
just-
Mr. Chairman, as I've been invited to speak, I can make my comments very quickly and sit down. I'm not looking for a response, I'm just
Oh,
looking to
okay.
make a
I thought you
statement.
were asking, I'm sorry.
My understanding of these rules, and I respect anybody who wants to point out that I may misunderstand the rules, are that in many cases, license violations are not treated strictly, but are rather treated graciously as to precedent and the other penalties that have been meted out for other establishments with similar violations. I appreciate the attempt to be fair. What I'm pointing out is if we have a new set of regulations, of which I am in favor, I think does not necessarily address a bigger problem that I observed as a neighbor to these establishments and as a attendee to these meetings, that when there are rules that can be enforced, they should be enforced. And if they are enforced strictly, I think a lot of the reasons why we are here at this point to have these additional regulations may have been avoided. And I would like to suggest that whatever rules are adopted here, these or any others, that we take a more strict approach to violations, that we not say that because there has been no precedent or because the ABCC gives us some latitude on whether we go right to the strict punishment, that we as a community agree that if there's an opportunity to essentially, by sending the message to those owners who are irresponsible, send a message to the owners who are responsible that we do appreciate their responsibility and all the good work that they do. I'm a customer at most of the establishments downtown. I appreciate all that they do to enforce the rules. I find it unfortunate when somebody does violate those rules, that those pursuing proper business tactics are not rewarded by having a competitor who's breaking the rules, stealing some of their business. And I'd just like to suggest that it's my interest that these or any other rules that are considered are enforced more strictly, more immediately, so that the better owners are rewarded and the violators find that there is a consequence to their violation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You kind of echo a few of the things that I've said in the past that bother me. It seems to me that, you know, the police department puts out a complaint. You know, we meet twice a month, the complaint gets heard, you have to give the notice to the person that's involved. Yeah, it does, it seems, but that's the legal system. And there's no way you can rush it or go through it. I will say, you know, it's easy to say that, you know, we don't care what the ABC says. Well, we have never had a decision overturned by the ABC. None of the punishments that we've ever given have been overturned.
Oh, actually, you have.
I have?
You once.
Me once, okay, I have.
I keep score.
Okay. The point being anyways that you need to, they have rights. The people that own businesses have rights that we have to adhere to. You've got to, you know, you have to do that. You have no choice. If this, Chief, can you explain about the sting? The sting is an educational tool. It's good for the police department They keep everybody on their toes. God knows that they might have saved somebody from getting killed by a drunk driver. They go out, because everybody that owns a store or a bar here would tell you, they get, well, you said it yourself, you know most of these people here because you go in and have a drink. They get friendly, and when they do get friendly with their customers and everything, which is good, but there's also a bad side to it, because now you somewhat let down your defenses, and you're not watching everybody as carefully as you should. And that's when you get, so every once in a while, you need somebody to, when you're dealing in alcohol, to come along and slap you upside the head to make you pay attention. But the ABC says that as far as compliance checks go, they even bring a picture of the person they used. And if we, as the commissioners, feel that that person looked too old, we can throw the thing right out right then and there. That's why they have to bring a picture. So many times Ray will ask Captain Webb, do you have a picture of the person? And we'll, kind of look at it to see, did he look young? Did somebody really make a mistake? I'm not trying to debate it, I'm just trying to make you understand. We have constrictions on us that we have to abide by. If we don't, the city would be inundated with lawsuits, not only against us, but the police department. Everybody has rights, even when they make a mistake.
To your point, I would like
That's
to
fair.
respond to two items. You suggest that we have never had a ruling overturned by the
have.
ABCC. I would suggest that that means that there is some distance between the position that has been prior taken by the city of Lowell and the full ability to enforce these rules that has not been tested.
Okay.
I would rather to see that there was just one.
Actually, as I pointed out, there was one.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's an important, and then,
Where we overstepped by using the method that you're suggesting of punishment
Slamming
now,
them.
trial later. So, I mean, I get it. I understand that there's a gut visceral reaction on behalf of people. There's a certain desire to see something happen, even when it's a compliance check that's failed. But I think, as Chairman Bayless said, the point is to slap somebody upside the head, not take their head off. It's a test. It's a quiz. It's not
and-
a...
Little lump.
I understand. And to
Right.
the second point that was made, that you have the discretion based on the appearance of the agent
Right. The
or
rules
officer,
actually state for hearings
I
that
would
they must appear
suggest
clearly
that by
under 21.
taking that position, that you will decline to enforce because of your subjective idea of the appearance of this individual. You are making a choice to side on the behalf of the establishment. I, as a neighbor and a patron of these establishments, would rather that the enforcement is to the letter of the law, which is check the IDs. I go into many establishments in other cities where I am checked for an ID. If anyone here thinks that I look like I'm 21, let me know. I'd be very, very flattered. I think there's not enough of that going on. I observe it firsthand by being in the establishments. I overhear the conversation. I know the person sitting next to me is underage. I'm not crazy. I'm suggesting, and I'm asking the board, the commission, to take more of the latitude that you are legally entitled. And if you explain to me there are some limitations, I respect that. And I thank you for taking up to the point where your legal abilities end. But I would like to ask as a resident that you take advantage of all of those opportunities, because any new set of rules that we do not choose to enforce strictly are not going to be as effective as they might otherwise. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else would like to speak in favor of the adoption? I'm sorry, did you want to say something, Christine? You had your hand? No? Okay. Next, please.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Stephen Green. I reside at 181 Market Street, Unit 21, downtown. And as you know, I've been here before, and I look forward to supporting this initiative and these changes in the regulations is hopefully a solution to the problem. If they don't solve the problem, we'll be back again. I've been talking to you and to the board, like the commission, for a number of years. And this has been an issue that's been gone on for a long time, and frustrated with the slow progress, and I realize there is process involved in doing this. But I don't want to have the situation where there are bodies in the morgue that are then saying, oh, gee, we should have done something, because the situation at times has gotten very bad. So support the ordinance changes, and I look forward to working with you and with the police department to make sure that they are properly enforced. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak in favor?
Kathleen Marson, 200 Market Street. I'm the president of the Downtown Neighborhood Association. On a personal level, I'm reluctant about making new rules for exactly the reasons that Craig points out. If we're not enforcing the ones that we have now, what's the point of making new ones? But as the president of the Downtown Neighborhood Association, I am here to say absolutely am in favor of the changes in rules. I heard from all of the neighborhood leaders this week, specifically Anne Marie Page, several times because of an incident that occurred on the corner of Page and John Street a couple of weeks ago. She keeps saying to me, Kathleen, you have to keep going down there, and, you know, it's
Why didn't she come?
It's knocking on the door of a deaf
You
man.
know, it's easy to stand there and say, I'm representing Anne Marie Page. Why didn't she come?
because-
She was one of the leaders that said, oh, if you meet at 6:30 at night, we'll come to those meetings. Our last meeting, we had 3 people here.
I think she
Three
sent,
people.
I think she sent you an email today telling you why she wasn't going to be here.
I didn't get it.
But as I said, it's like knocking on the door of a deaf man. I come down here, come down here, come down here, and I can, you keep doing the same thing over and over again. It's ridiculous. So I absolutely, you know, I'm supportive of the residents, I'm supportive of residents in my neighborhood, and we're in support of the new rules. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak in favor? In favor? In favor of adopting the resolution? Anyone else? Anyone else up there that would like to speak in favor of adopting? Okay? Anybody in the hallway? We want to be absolutely fair. There's a lot of people who want to have this done, I guess. Okay? Let the record show that there were 3 people to speak in favor. Okay. Huh? Well, ma'am, I'm sitting here saying you want to speak in favor. That's what I'm here for.
Yes, sir. My name is Susan Purdy. I live at 172 Middle Street, the Air Lofts. And I speak in favor of this, and you said to say ditto if I agree. I agree.
Fine.
If you want numbers,
What's her name?
I invite any of the rest of the downtown residents to come up and say we support this.
Nobody else? Well, is there anybody else from the downtown residents?
Well, I'm not finished.
I don't support it. I'm a downtown resident.
Well,
Don't speak for me.
I'm not then.
Okay, don't.
I said there are
I'm a
many.
downtown resident. Thank you.
And I do. One thing I would like to see added, though, is that when you do give a closure, that you do include a weekend in that closure. You gave a 7-day closure to the Spaghettiville incident, and suspended 5 days and closed them for Tuesday and Wednesday. And those, I assume, are your lowest income days. And I know a number of us have talked and said, why isn't one of those days a weekend day? We'd like to see it, and I personally would like to see it, mandatory, that when you give a 5 to 7 day suspension, or 5 to 7 day closure, that it be mandatory that one of those days be a Friday or a Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And also, well, one other thing, please. When you do this, I listened to it, I heard it, but I looked through it and thought, I don't see a list of where the changes were. And it would have been helpful
Ma'am, these are
to have
all
had a list of exactly where the changes were, so I could go back and quickly look at the wording of it.
Okay,
Just a
that's-
word of procedure for the next
Christine speaks.
time.
That's a great point, and actually what we can make available to the public is we can email out copies of the original regulations, and then we can show what the final draft looks like in a red line version. So all the new text can appear in a red font, and also we can delineate what has been changed in the prior version, assuming that's
And
where
all
we
the
go.
change, just for everybody's information, all the changes were discussed at open meetings that we had very, very low attendance other than a couple individuals. But we met, I'd say, a grand total of 10 hours between the chief, the board, the solicitor's office, Ms. Myers, and a couple others. Were here and worked diligently on this. So.
I would also say if you're looking for the old regulations, they've been posted online on the City of Lowell website under the License Commission. They're the first document that's listed. It's all the existing regulations. We've had them up there for, I think Ryan put them up there quite some time ago. Okay, so.
Like how long ago?
I'd say they've been there for 3 or 4 years minimum.
Okay. But yeah, what we're looking at today, these are new regulations, some of which kind of regurgitate the old ones, some of which are new. So.
I understand that they were posted. I read them. I've been to several of the meetings. I didn't know we were invited to a number of your meetings where you decided what changes to be made. But nonetheless, here it is tonight. You're going over them with a bigger body, and it would have been, as Christine's nodding, yes, it would have been helpful to have the changes either noted, starred, or on a separate sheet for us that we can quickly refer back to, because I can read them, but I don't remember if it's what the numbers are or where they are. Thank you.
And we can still make that information available. It's not as timely, but we.
All right. That portion of the hearing is closed. Okay? Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition? In opposition? Okay, Nick, I see your hand up. Come up.
My name's Nick Petrakis. I reside at 43 Stable Street, Lowell, Mass. I've been a citizen of Lowell for my whole life, born and bred here. I appear today as the proprietor and manager of the Blue Shamrock, which I opened up almost 17 years ago, in a burnt out, boarded up and dilapidated building, which had stood vacant for 8 or 9 years. Before I opened up, I studied where I was going to open up, the commercial district, the heart of the commercial district, the downtown area. I studied what my license would be, what the parameters of my license would be as opposed to the surrounding towns. All that came into consideration. My partner and I invested our own money, family money. We didn't get any money from the city. We got loans from the bank. We still hold double mortgages on it. That being said, I realized that the residential area has grown downtown. A lot of the residents are my friends and my customers. God bless them all. I'm sympathetic to that. But the analogy I draw best is, and I don't want this to come the right way, like I'm unsympathetic, but I had a friend who bought a condo near Fenway Park. When Fenway Park lets out, he doesn't call the police department. He doesn't yell and say, geez, it's loud, there's people outside, whatever. And that's not like to diffuse the situation. They have legitimate complaints. I'm not saying that. But it is downtown living. I believe the chief said it at one of his meetings a couple of years ago. That when people buy a place, they have to do due diligence. I'm open the same hours I ever was. In fact, less. I have the same entertainment I've always had for 15, 16 years. So in regards to these specific proposals, I've talked, and I can't talk for all the owners, just like someone else can't talk for all the residents, but I've become very friendly with the majority of the owners. I've talked to them recently in the weeks leading up to this. And like I said, I'm not their spokesman, but the vast majority of them would be crippled by these new rules and regulations. Crippled or put out of business. Put out of business. And I'm not being over dramatic. And I'll just give you some examples from my point of view. I've said at various meetings that most of these regulations I voluntarily do. Let's say don't let anyone in after 1. I've stood up here and said, you know what, I've been doing that for 15 years. That being said, there has to be some discretionary ability here. The people that own the place right across from me, the woman that just opened the place, she brings her staff in there. They closed maybe 1:15. She comes over with her whole staff. The people up above that own the restaurant at the corner, he brings his staff down there. Now, they might get there 1:15, 1:20. They're still in their uniforms. They haven't had a drink all night. I can't let them in and serve them 1 beer. Well, now I can if this is written in stone because now I'm breaking the law. You might not think it adds up to a lot, but you're talking about 12 people 3 times a week or 14 people or whatever. Adds up to, a couple $100, $800 a month. Who could come here and say, you know what, give me that cut. I'll take that cut. Even if I laid off all my employees, I still wouldn't be able to absorb that. That's a huge pay cut. And in this economy, I'm open 7 days a week. I'm struggling to get by and whatever. And I never show up. I stay on top of things, budget hearings and all that. And people, I don't begrudge anybody a raise, especially public servants or that whatever. But as a taxpayer, I'm footing the bill. And I'm all for it. In fact, it says on my sign right outside, I give discounts to senior citizens, military personnel, policemen, and firemen. The people that I admire most. I should have put clergy on there, but I didn't. But the people I admire the most. So I'm all willing to do my part and everything, whatever, but you can't say to me, Nick, take a pay cut. And then, you know what I mean, we're gonna raise your taxes, we're gonna raise this, because that's what's up. My water rates are up, my property taxes are up, everything's up. Well, that's fine, okay, we all have to deal with the economy. But you're gonna say, Nick, take a pay cut? Are you gonna ask the other owners in the city, take a pay cut? It can't be, you know what I mean? And the bottom line is, we're competing with all these towns around us. And let's face it, all the contiguous towns around us, contiguous to Lowell, they're all 2 o'clock, not 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Chelmsford has 2 o'clock license, Drake gets 2 o'clock, Tingsborough's 2 o'clock. For some reason, I talk to people and they think the perception is 1 o'clock. Billerica is 1 o'clock. Well, Billerica's not contiguous to Lowell. I think you have to go through Chelmsford, but all right, say Billerica. They're 1 o'clock. Well, I'm competing with these places. I have bands, they play from 12:30 to 1:30, and they start at 8, but the main band goes on from 12:30 to 1:30. I've already had some bands cancel because they're like, we'll just go to the Boathouse and Drake it. We're not going to change our hours. They're tribute bands. Well, they don't bring me a lot of people, but they bring me 40, 50 people. That is a lot to me. So I'm sure the other owners, they're going to suffer the same way. And it's just, we make up a huge percentage of the tax base. You know, a lot of people might say, well, you know what? Good. Better for those guys to go out of business. No, not better. And not just for us. We have employees that depend on us. We have family members that depend on us. And it's a vote for these regulations, without being over dramatic, is a vote against small business. I buy my meat and poultry from Lowell Provision. I get my cleaning supplies from Lowell Janitorial. I get paper products from Rosenblum's. I get produce from Market Street Market. I've talked to all these people. They're like, well, they didn't even know this was going on. I get my paint from Harmon's. All these places are Lowell places. And all these other guys that I've talked to and the women that I've talked to that own establishments, they get their stuff from the same places. So it is a vote against small business. And you guys might think I'm being over dramatic, and the neighbors might. This is all I got, and I'm not a rich guy. I got a sister at home who's on oxygen and stuff, whatever. Without painting a dramatic picture, everyone's got their own problems. But I can't have this, because if it does, I'm out of business. And I've talked to the other owners, and they're out of business. And bars and taverns and clubs in Lowell are not just the root of all evil. We've raised a lot of money. Me, myself, I've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for Toys for Tots and muscular dystrophy, Down syndrome, and there's a lot of other things too that I know other club owners have done that goes under the radar. Wheelchair for people that they don't put in the paper, some people needed it. People who couldn't pay their funeral expenses, that we have a benefit for them. So we're not the root of all evil, you know, and these rules are very, very intrusive, you know, and I'd like to see anyone who has a business and have everyone tell them it borders on the verge of communism. And the thing is, you have people that, you know what I mean, they're not even part of the community. They're not even part of the Lowell community, and they're big proponents of this. Well, I am part of the Lowell community, and it is a rollback of hours, because I know I've come to all the meetings, and I know there was some banter back and forth about is it a rollback of hours or not. Well, I called the ABCC in Boston, and I asked the person, I said, does this constitute a rollback of hours? And they said, well, if you're allowed to serve to a certain time, and now that time has been, it's an earlier time, that constitutes a rollback of hours. So without, you know what I mean, getting into a game of semantics or bending about syllogisms or any of that, I went right to the source. I figured the Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission is the best place to go, and they said this constitutes, in their opinion, a rollback of hours. So it's a rollback of hours, which, you know, we really shouldn't have to endure. You know, it can be done on a case-by-case basis. People keep bringing up, you know, what happened at Fortunato's, which was tragic, but you guys took action, and now that problem's solved. So, you know, I don't know why people say, you know, there's no action. That happened, it was taken care of, problem solved. So God bless everybody who's on both sides of this equation. I really mean that, but I had to get my point across. So thank you for listening to me.
My name is Daryl Deschler. I live at 200 Market Street in downtown Lowell, and I'm also the manager. Daryl Deschler, 200 Market Street, downtown Lowell. I'm also the manager of Savannah Palace at 25 Market Street in Lowell, and I'm here to speak against these rules. Not only are you going to close down other businesses, but you're also going to create more problems. If we have to shut our entertainment off at 1 o'clock and people actually have to talk to each other in a bar where they've been drinking all night, what do you think's going to happen? There's going to be several more fights, several more problems, and several more issues. I agree with everything Nick said, so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dick Capalla. I'm the owner of, my wife and I are the owner of Cappy's Copper Kettle on 245 Central Street. I've been in business for 47 years. I know a lot of these people are new here, but we've had problems in the past like this. I mean, I've been through it. We had a motorcycle gang at one time that was terrorizing the city. The police took care of the problem. It took a little while, but they solved it. About 10 years later, we had a local bar that was terrorizing, they were ganging in a local bar that were terrorizing other bars. The police again took care of the problem. The the board here took care of the bar. They're out of business. It takes time for these things to be accomplished, but they do accomplish them. So I think we have enough regulations, as I've just proved. The present regulations will take care of the problem. As far as the ones that are on the list, I mean, I hope we don't enforce them, but if we do, you're going to have a problem with your patrons not being able to re-enter if they have a smoke outside. You're not going to be able to let them come back in. That's going to create a very difficult problem. My customers come to dance. I have entertainment. They dance almost all night long. Most of the dance is done at the last hour, believe it or not, again, because that's when they feel most comfortable. So to stop the music at 1 o'clock is really going to hurt my business. And the only other point I had is the training. Like I said, I've been in business for 47 years. If you do put these rules in, maybe you could put in, after 10 years at the same establishment, you would no longer have to be TIPS trained, because I would think at least 10 years of experience would be enough. Thank you very much.
Just out of curiosity, how many times have you failed a compliance check or I don't think I ever have. I don't think I've ever. 47 years. 47 years. Pretty good record. Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak? Speak in opposition to adopting these rules? Yes, come up.
My name is Alan Kaplan, I'm owner of the Village Smokehouse. And first, I'd like to say I ditto with Nick, just to risk of being redundant. But I also think by this 1 o'clock law, it's going to cause people to leave at 12:30, maybe 12:45, and rush to other towns, knowing that they have another hour of music and dancing. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Patrick Flaherty. I live at 130 John Street in Unit 301. I also run the occasional rock and roll show. I run an open mic night over at the Worthen. To remove the discretion for entry and exit after 1 a.m. is going to be effectively cause most of my shows to have to end significantly earlier, to have people coming in and out with equipment, loading things in and out, and having a police officer have to make the decision right then and there if that person outside smoking with the guitar is a patron or a person playing is going to cause a lot of issues. So I haven't seen a whole lot of problems in the last few months in downtown, and all of this came about when there was all sorts of doom and gloom and what I think they call in the statistics world a small sample size used to say we're on the precipice of some sort of explosion in downtown or riots and whatnot. And I felt very disingenuous. And so leaving the regulations as they are and giving another year or two before we make any decisions would be a better course of action, in my opinion. So, thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak?
Hi, my name's Heather Firth. I reside at 141 John Street. I also work at Bryan's Ivy Hall. We don't get busy till about 12 o'clock. And with the recession, this is not like a sad, sappy story, but I'm helping support my parents. So what you're going to end up doing by taking away that extra hour is you're going to take away half, if not 2/3 of the tips I make, which I help my family out on. So it's really going to take away from me. And every other bartender here, I can honestly tell you, because that's right when you make the most amount of money, around 1 to like 1:30 is when you make your money. They buy their last drink, and then they tip you for the whole entire night and stuff. What's going to happen is people aren't going to come in at 12 o'clock. They're not even going to come in at all. Ivy Hall's probably going to close, and we're going to be screwed, and I'm going to have no job, and I'm not going to be able to support my family or help out my parents or do anything else. I'm not trying to be like, give you that sad story, but it's just, it's the way it is. It's the recession, you know what I mean? And if you do start closing it at 1, they're not going to come in, and they're going to go over to surrounding towns, and then they're going to come back drunk, crashing or doing whatever they're going to do. Not to mention, what about vandalism? You think the people aren't going to be upset that you changed the hours of Lowell? A lot of people are going to be very upset that they cannot go out drinking and walk down to where they normally drink, and now they're going to have to drive their cars somewhere else and get drunk, and then they're going to come back. You know what I mean? They're going to come back into the city drunk, driving, instead of walking the streets. That's all.
Good evening. My name is Megan Ryan. I live at 200 Mass Mills Drive. I'm also speaking as a employee of the Village Smokehouse and also a patron of all the bars around here. So I agree with Heather 100%, where the bulk of our tips come in from 12 o'clock to 1:30. Everyone likes to do their own thing and then come in late night and get it done. Also, when I'm out, I like to have a good time, stay out, and if the doors lock at 1 o'clock, regardless if my friends over here, my friends over there know me or not, if I want to go outside and have a cigarette, they're not going to let me back in. Regardless of how much money I'm spending, how much whatever, it's still going to happen. And the same goes for the people coming in to visit me when I'm working and not my other employees. They're our friends, and we have to say, nope, I'm sorry, fine, we'll go somewhere else. Or, like she said, they're gonna drive up to somewhere else, they're not even gonna stop by here because, oh, they're gonna close in a half hour, we might as well drive up to Tingsboro, might as well drive over to Drake it. So the whole town is losing money when I'm going out to support my friends, support the economy, and we can't do that anymore. So, ditto to everyone said everything else. Thank you.
Kevin Harris, the owner of Bryan's Ivy Hall. I'm just going to agree with everybody. I think my business would be hurt the most. We do get a late crowd. We don't even open till 10 at night. We're open 3 nights a week. We don't have the lunch crowd the 7 days a week like everybody else. We do get busy around midnight. If you took that away, I probably would close, which some of these guys might like, I don't know, but I'd probably have to close my doors. So when the 20-odd employees I do employ would be out of a job. And there would be another vacant building downtown, and I don't think anything else could survive in that building the way it's set up, so I just think I'd probably have to close my doors if these two pass, so that's my opinion. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Corey Belanger, owners of Major's Pub. Now, I've attended a few of these hearings throughout the last coming months since, you know, the big fallout, so to speak, whether it's I'm watching them or I'm attending. And one thing I don't find very fair is the perception us bar owners and restaurant owners have been in a bad light here, okay? You know, for starters, we do have rights, okay? We're license fee holders, we're taxpayers, we're employees, we pay property tax, personal property tax, income tax, meals tax, you name it. So we do our share to pay into the system. Recently, I made a rather large investment and put literally everything on the line to locate to a much higher level location in downtown Lowell to keep the tax base coming in and my employees employed in Lowell. Now, behind me, I have a stack of potential new regulations stacked against me. Okay, that's like all the other bar owners, Mr. Petrakis stated, that's going to be very hurtful. It's hurtful and unfair, okay? I've done nothing wrong throughout this, okay? And what about J.J. Boomers on the Boulevard or Kilkenny Pub on 38? They've done nothing wrong. Where are their rights in this case? Okay, so this commission sent us a strong message on that Fortunatos incident. We get it, okay? We're all on our toes. I think everybody's picked it up a few notches. And if that board continues to act that way towards bad regulations, then shame on us. We get the message, okay? You know, I've been coming downtown. I'm 43. I've been coming downtown since I was 21. It's a city, well, 100,000 people, this stuff happens. I mean, Dick Capola's going back to when the Hells Angels were in town, okay? This used to be, I've seen some bad things downtown Lowell to a much higher degree, and Deputy Ryan's here, I mean, he may be able to attest to that. But it happens, it's a city, and now we have our residents in the city, we have inundated with residents, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful manner, okay? I'm a vice chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals in Lowell. I've approved many of the projects they live in, okay? But I'm thinking there are adults, professional adults moving in. They had to have made an education decision that they live downtown. There's going to be rumblings. Not that they're not entitled to a quality of life in downtown Lowell, and I'll do my best to do that. So, but we have to live in harmony. They have to understand they live downtown. We're trying to make business for ourselves. So I think there's a way. I think we all get the message. We have bartenders here who are going to be hurt. I know I have staff who's going to be hurt if these regulations take place. So I just ask that you act fair on this, and in the future, be more harsh when things go wrong. Thank you very much.
Anyone else that would like to speak in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Dimitri Papoulias. I'm the general manager of Bryant's Ivy Hall. I reside at 347 Market Street, Lowell. I am completely against these new regulations, as it will hurt my income as being an employee of Bryant's Ivy Hall and my employees who work for me. I am against this. Ditto.
Anyone else would like to speak in opposition?
My name is Eric Finn. I own Bryant's Ivy Hall along with Kevin Hayhurst. I would not like to see these regulations go in. It'll hurt us bad. We'll close our doors, like Kevin said. It's going to hurt us. And ditto to the rest. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else would like to speak in opposition?
Hello, my name is Joseph Carr. I live at 80 Rogers Street in Lowell. I'm completely opposed to these.
Get it?
Ditto to everyone else. Thank you.
Get his name? Did you get his name? Okay. Anyone else would like to speak in opposition?
Hi, my name's Paul Kozulski. I reside in Dracut, but I'm the commander and liquor license holder of the Polish American Veterans Club in Lowell. We have some odd 27 dot teams that play out of our place. Sometimes they go in late nights. They might start at if they start late, they might end over 1 o'clock. What would happen if I got to kick these people out during the middle of their match? If we closed early, it would definitely hurt everything. And obviously, extra income is definitely needed right now, so I'm against everything.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Christian Diamantopoulos. I'm a bartender at Bryant's Ivy Hall in Lowell, 74 Merrimack Street. I live in the Highlands, Belmont Street, in Lowell, Mass. I'm totally against these new regulations. It would hurt me financially as well as a lot of other people who depend on the extra income to get by. I don't think it should happen.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak in opposition? Excuse me, in favor. Opposition to adopting, right. Excuse me. That's all right. Yeah, I had my teeth fixed, my hearing's not working. Okay. Anybody else would like to speak? Come up if you want.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Ronnie Brogan. I'm the partner in Garcia Brogan's on Middlesex Street.
How could I guess?
So we put a significant amount of money into that area of the city 3 years ago. You mean, and with these new rules and regulations coming in, I think you're painting with a broad brush here. There is certain individuals in the business who aren't abiding by the rules. We are abiding by the rules. All of our staff are tip certified. Even our hostess is tip certified. We are going by the rules day in, day out, weekend. And to cut back to 1 o'clock is going to affect us a lot. And the thing about this is, I don't know if this is a spillover from what happened last summer. There's certain, like, I treat having my license as a privilege. A lot of people don't do that. I mean, I have establishments in other cities, 12 years and 14 years. And we've come across problems. We sat down with the licensing board and the police chief, and we took care of them straight away. For example, in Salem, about 3 years ago, we're having a lot of trouble downtown. All the restaurants and the bars got together and paid for 2 detail for a month, 2 police on detail. The restaurants paid for it, just for the 2 detail to walk around each bar and restaurant to make sure everything was okay inside, asking the doorman, the owners, how is everything in there, do you need us, or anything. We've done that for the full month in the city of Salem, and that took care of everything. So I'm suggesting maybe we could do that in the city of Lowell, where the restaurants and the bars get together and pay for 2 extra police officers to be on detail for whatever 4 hours on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or even a Thursday, which will take care of a lot of these problems. As I say, I treat my license as a privilege, and that's what everybody else should do. And to have residents objecting to, I mean, my business during the week is residents of the cities. I mean, and we do not want to, forgive my language, piss off any residents. The residents are your lifeline during the week, and then you have the outsiders and the locals coming in the weekends. And I mean, if you don't have happy residents, it's like not having a happy wife, you don't have a happy house. Do you know what I mean? So if you have happy residents, it makes things a lot easier. And I mean, I other establishments, most of the residents come in to me during the week, and they'll say, what happens the weekend? Oh, this will happen, I couldn't go to sleep, or this happened in my doorway. We take care of that straight away. And we want to be one-on-one with residents. We don't want to fight with the residents. That's the opposite. And they say we want to work with the police. And that's one of my suggestions is, I mean, if we need 2 extra details on the weekends, I'm willing to chip in for that. That's a suggestion I'm making to you. So thank you for having me speak, or letting me speak. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Last call. Anyone else? That portion of the hearing is closed. Okay. Do you want to address it, Chief, from that?
Do you want a background on how we came to this point?
Sure.
Okay. Last summer, all of us in the police department recognized that we were seeing a significant increase in the level of violence in downtown Lowell. And I presented to your commission, to the License Commission last summer, and to the City Council, a report about some of the problems we were seeing, and I wanted to make you aware of the problems that existed and the increase that was occurring, as well as the members of the City Council and the City Manager. The Council instructed me to consider or come up with some plans or thoughts on how we could curb the problems that were taking place in downtown. And some of these suggestions were brought to the council, brought to the city manager's attention. And then as the year wore on, as we got into early 2012, we did see indeed some more significant incidents that occurred, which culminated in the Fortunatos incident, which of course we're all well aware of. Of course, that was the impetus for a large meeting here in the council chambers, the city council meeting that I believe Commissioner Weicker and Commissioner Occasion were in attendance. I believe you were ill at the time, Mr. Bayless. You were not able to make it. And there was a lot of very passionate dialogue at that particular meeting. And I brought to the meeting the regulations that I would propose to deal with the violence that we were seeing in downtown Lowell. These regulations and these suggestions were thought of not only by myself, but by the members of the command staff of the Lowell Police Department. We met and we discussed what we could do to try to curtail what we were seeing as an increase in the violence in downtown. And as you know, some of the violence was pretty alarming. There were people who were beaten, people who were put in very serious condition as a result of the altercations that were taking place. We felt mostly due to the problem of over-serving. At that point, these recommendations led to discussions with your commission and the meetings that took place over the last several weeks here in this room. Those recommendations are before us tonight. So we basically have a decision to make about how we're going to proceed in terms of dealing with these issues in downtown. You know, we continue to see issues that occur. We have officers now working on Friday and Saturday nights, 4 hours each night, a supervisor and 3 patrolmen who work from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. We do have some restrictions in our budget. The money that was given to the police department in terms of overtime for this fiscal year was cut somewhat at one city council meeting, so we ended up with about $100,000 that I could basically dedicate to downtown. So those officers are now working on that $100,000 budget. So that allows us to put extra personnel on Friday and Saturday night. Thursday night was one night that we once had extra officers on as well, but unfortunately, we're not able to do that at this point, although we hope at some point maybe to get some extra money through some grants. So this was, you know, I will also say that we had regular meetings with the stakeholders in downtown Lowell. The communication, I thought, was very, very good. I was meeting with people who live downtown, people who work downtown, and many of the owners you see are here tonight. They have been very, very attentive to the concerns of the police department. I have never once doubted their sincerity. However, I will tell you that when I made suggestions for voluntary compliance, when it came to some of these suggestions, some suggested they would voluntarily comply, some said they would not, some did not respond, some said they'll comply in certain instances, but not all. So I appreciate the fact that there has been some attention to this, and I appreciate the fact that there has been recently a meeting that was held with the stakeholders. Many of the people who are here tonight, we met over in the mayor's reception room, and we had a dialogue about what we expect on the Folk Festival weekend and how that's going to play out, and we basically gave a kind of an assessment of how we expected things to go. So again, I think that what we're trying to do is, it appears that there is a sentiment in the room that it's the people who live downtown versus the people who own the bars. And I don't think that's absolutely or necessarily correct. I think that there's a larger picture here of disorder, of over-serving that needs to be curtailed. There has been instances where people under the age of 21 have been served, as you know. They have been identified not only through compliance checks, but also by officers, detectives going into establishments and checking IDs and things like that, have found people in establishments with fake IDs and things along those lines, and they were under 21. So those things need to be addressed. I know that, there might be some suggestion that I am anti-establishment or liquor establishment. That is completely false. I am only in favor of maintaining a very orderly and successful downtown, and it is my opinion, my honest opinion, that downtown would thrive if people felt safe, if people felt that they weren't going to be accosted, or the businesses who are not liquor establishments would not be subjected to vandalism, which has been a problem. You know, we've had dealings with people who have been intoxicated, who've been urinating in public. Very, very discouraging, in my opinion, to see things like that happen, as well as the fact that these fights have occurred, and recently one occurred on John Street, where patrons from establishments we have not identified were involved in a fight, and someone was knocked unconscious and his head was pounded into the pavement, and he was seriously injured. So those are the types of things we're trying to curtail. No one wants to see those things happen. We want to make sure that downtown is safe, and that's why these regulations were suggested to the commission.
Thank you. Was this the number of complaints? When they did this sheet, was this all the complaints? No. Was that the number of incidences that took place? Yeah, it does. That's a chief report from the law department.
You know, I think myself, I've been pretty consistent on this matter. When we had the meeting February 16th, you know, it's my opinion that the City Council of Lowell is the chief policy-making body. And I applaud Councilor Nguyen and Mendonca and Martin for being here. I don't know if there's any other ones here, but those are the ones I can see. And they voted 9-0 to enact a draft of the regulations that we've put before you tonight. There are a couple changes, but this was based on a presentation that the chief of police or the superintendent of police gave to the city council and the community at large, and the city council overwhelmingly approved it, 9-0. No one voted against it. So I took that as a direction from the city council that they wanted these regulations enacted. And we had numerous meetings as we revised them and went over them. And I applaud all the people that came out to speak against them tonight, and also who spoke for them. Now, there are a couple questions that or the two issues that seem to be the root of the angst on these regulations are, number one, and to be, no one mentioned, you know, there is a rollback of hours going on from 2 to 1:30. And I don't even think one of the bar owners mentioned that rollback, because it is, you know, standard practice to stop serving at approximately 1:30. And we've instructed the establishments to proceed in that vein, and they have, and you know, we haven't had any issues with late service. But the big thing is the entertainment license. That seems to be the crux of this issue. And I would ask the superintendent of police to explain to us why you believe a 1 o'clock ceasing of entertainment is appropriate for the city of Lowell. Because I have some concerns about it, but you know, you're the expert in these matters, so I'd like you to explain to myself and the public here why that is suggested.
When we met, when the command staff met to discuss what regulations we could suggest to the commission and to the city council, we talked about how we could basically slowly diffuse the night, so to speak, in terms of having people have their last drink, last call, consider moving out of the establishment, making their way to their homes or their automobiles or whatever the case may be. And officers who've been working details in downtown, working at establishments over the years, some who have been present during these events, these evenings when these nightclubs have many people in them, has indicated to me that there is a benefit to stopping the entertainment at that time, because at that point, people start to understand and realize that it's time to start to think about leaving. And when we talk about the entertainment, we certainly did not exclude the background music or I think what we were talking about were live bands or disc jockeys in the regulations. So if there was some background music on a radio or other type of music, I don't think that would be a problem, or that's not what we intended to impact. It would merely mean that the disc jockey or the band, the live music would be ended at that time. People would obviously continue to stay in the establishment, and then actually could stay until 1:40 when the lights would come on, and then people would be expected to start filtering out at that point. And of course, we know that alcohol service would continue until 1:30 a.m. So we're not trying to hurt the people who provide the entertainment, but we're just thinking that if the entertainment ends at 1 o'clock, it's going to give people more time to leave the establishment and filter their automobiles in their homes.
Superintendent, let me ask you, I know that you said that you've had a lot of meetings with the stakeholders, but I'm kind of seeing a inconsistency in positions with respect to what you're proposing and with respect to what the stakeholders who've spoken have stated. Was there any consensus building or any discussion on best practices? Were any of these regulations proposed by the establishments that are here that are going to be subjected to these rules that are speaking in opposition to them and are not listed in your hit list of problem places?
Well, we don't have a hit list of the police department, but what I will tell you is that when we do have these meetings, these stakeholder meetings, they're established to facilitate communication between the police department, between the people who own the establishments, and the people who live and work in downtown Lowell. And actually, it was discussed at one meeting when an owner of an establishment, Hooks Like Kelly's, actually said to me, there are places in the Commonwealth, establishments, cities and towns, that have regulations like this, and I've actually been abiding by this at my own establishment. And he suggested that as a possibility to curb some of the issues we were seeing, and I agreed with that assessment, and I then proposed it to some of the people who were present at that particular meeting, but there was not a great deal of concurrence with my opinion. Again, we felt that as we saw these problems occur and as they continued to escalate, I was asked to present proposals to the City Council that I thought would be helpful in dealing with these problems, and that's exactly what I did, and these are the proposals that I've came up with. And they were proposals that were discussed with the command staff of the police department. So there was a lot of input from those people, but as far as the establishments that, there's no consensus, as far as I know, from the people in this room. Of course, I would agree with you that they're not in favor of this. Obviously, that's evident tonight.
I mean, I only ask that because I know in the past you've held Garcia Brogan's out as one of the success stories for downtown Lowell, and yet the owner is down here speaking in opposition to these rules as being injurious to his business practice.
Well,
so
I
I'm just wondering
appreciate
if there was any consensus building before we took one person's solution and applied it, I think the saying was, with a broad brush to everybody.
Sure. No, I appreciate what you're saying, and I think that what the gentleman from Garcia Brogan's is saying is that, and quite honestly, we've had very few problems there, so I guess we could hold them up as a kind of a model of the type of behavior we want to see, and if that was the case. One of the things I did notice at Garcia Brogan's is they have the set of their own rules and regulations posted right there as you come in, which I thought was pretty helpful to the people who would be, going there, and it would be fewer problems as a result of stuff like that, so.
So, I was just going to ask if it was fair to say that we could leave Garcia Brogan's operating exactly the way they are now and expect that things should stay pretty much exactly the way they are now. They're a success story?
Well, I would say that they've done very, very well. It's not to say that at some point things could change there, or management could change, the ownership could change. I really don't know. Obviously, there are some establishments that have had more problems than others, and we want to be able to create an environment in downtown where things are thriving and the people feel safe.
Well, would you say that it be, given that they're a success story, in your words, past testimony, that we could exempt them from these regulations because they seem to have things under control, are doing well, and we could let them stay open and keep their entertainment going as they've been doing without these problems.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say one way or the other. I'm not quite sure when they enter in their entertainment. I'm not quite sure how they filter people out, what time they stop serving alcohol. I would suggest that one of the places that had some problems and took some measures to deal with the issues was Hooks Like Kelly's, and it does seem that some of the problems there did dissipate.
Okay, I'm just saying, though, that for the people who aren't having problems and have managed to get their own solutions, would you be in favor of allowing them to continue to operate freely in the manners that they've been doing so successfully for all these years?
Well, it's really not my decision to be in favor of that or not to be in favor of that. That's your decision. And I think that one of the things I would suggest to you is that we need to obviously be consistent. We need to have rules and regulations that are enforced, and we need to have hopefully some agreement of all the people involved that would make everything work well for everybody.
And then I guess just the other issue that I heard a lot was the entry and re-entry of patrons after 1 a.m. And if you could just explain why you suggested that.
Well, one of the things that was brought to my attention particularly by officers who work the detail or at details in downtown or other establishments, there appears to be sometimes many people who try to enter after 1 o'clock, and that would impact. There are some communities in the greater Lowell area have earlier closings.
Which ones, just for the record?
Sure. I'll point out to you that based on the report that I have here, Billerica has a 1 a.m. closing. Chelmsford has a 2 a.m. closing for some establishments, but 1 o'clock for newer licenses. Drake has a 2 a.m. closing. Lawrence, according to my report, has a 1 a.m. closing, but I'm not sure. They seem to be fluctuating in their closing hours. I'm not sure where it is right now. Tewksbury is a 1 a.m. closing. Tingsboro is a 2 a.m. closing, and Westford is a 1 a.m. closing.
But the cities, so it's really Billerica and Tewksbury are 1 a.m. and everyone else is 2 a.m. it seems.
Billerica, Tewksbury, and Westford.
In Westford?
Yeah, and some establishments in Chelmsford.
Okay. And, all right, so that's, you're worried about the rush at 1 a.m. And then just the one thing that you keep repeating is that people don't feel safe in downtown Lowell. I'm a resident of the city of Lowell, and I feel safe. I think I can probably speak for the other residents of the city of Lowell that they feel safe. And I didn't hear anyone here that are all residents of the city of Lowell and live in this community say that they felt unsafe. So where did you generate that opinion?
Well, I think that it's generated based on the incidents that have occurred in downtown in this time frame that we're talking about, the increase in violence, the assaults that have taken place, and there has been an increase in assaults over the last couple of years. As a matter of fact, one of the gentlemen who testified tonight, when we had our stakeholders meeting earlier this week, brought to my attention, and I was aware of an incident that took place at Middle and Palmer Street, where there was an assault, and there was quite a bit of blood, from what I understand. And
Was this in direct relationship to a barroom? I mean, to a liquor establishment?
Well, regardless of whether it was or it wasn't, Mr. Bayless,
Well,
that
no,
would
no,
create
no,
an
wait a minute,
environment
Chief.
where people would feel unsafe. But the point is...
Whoa, wait a minute. You're talking about cutting back these people's time based on an incident downtown where somebody got beat up. My question to you is simple. Was this a result of a liquor establishment that has a license that caused this to happen? They overserved the guy, or?
We're getting a complaint.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're not getting a complaint, and I'm not telling you
That's
that I
important
can.
for all these
Could you excuse me just for a second and let me speak?
Yes.
I'll tell you that, in my opinion, the violence that we've seen in downtown Lowell is directly attributed to the liquor establishments in downtown and the places that continuously overserve, places that have large crowds that create an environment where these problems occur. And many of these problems occur when the bars close and the people are making their way back to their automobiles, and these fights take place, and they're not at the establishment itself, but they're nearby, on their way to the parking garage on John Street or Market Street or whatever the case may be, and these fights occur. And yeah, people do feel unsafe if you're in downtown and there are fights taking place and people are getting hurt. There's no doubt about it. And some of these people don't live in Lowell. Some people are visitors from Lowell. As a matter of fact, about half of the arrests we make are people who don't live in the city of Lowell. I will tell you that, you know, anecdotally, there was one incident where our officers were making an arrest, and someone came out of the crowd with pepper spray and pepper sprayed the officer making the arrest. They were throwing lit cigarettes at the officers. So there have been instances where even our officers have come under attack and have been in very tenuous situations as a result of these issues.
And finally, for me, just from the chief, I know that we had requested, or Commissioner Weicker had requested a considerable amount of information from the police department, and you said you were understaffed and weren't able to provide that to us. But curiously, today, we received a report from the police department that says disorder crime in the downtown neighborhood between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. has increased 21% in 2012 as compared to the same time period in 2011. But as I go through the, as you have the breakdown, you have assaults in 2011 for, the time period is from, just for the public, the time period is from January 1st through July 11th of 2011, and then for 2012. Assaults in 2011 you have listed down as 33, and in 2012 you have 31. So there's a decrease.
Correct.
Disorderly and disturbing the peace, you have, there were 27 in 2011, and there were 28 this year, so basically the same. Vandalism, you had in 2011 that there were 21 incidents, and this year there were 16, and that's considerable decrease, almost 34%. But the one that's in here, public urination, 2011 there were 4 incidents, and in 2012 there have been 28. So my question is, I don't think people are urinating any more or less. You know, people go to a bar, they're going away. This, I'm not trying to be, what I'm trying to say is, these statistics say the disturbances have increased, but take out the public urination, they've actually gone down. Now, are you just doing a better job enforcing the public urination code? Because I find it hard to believe that all of a sudden there's a 600% more people, you know, going out on the street, or are you guys concentrating on that? And that, I don't like numbers that are skewed, and I just feel that issuing this report on the day of a hearing that shows that, you know, real crimes, assault and disorderly disturbing and vandalism are down, but public urination, which I shouldn't say real crimes, but in my opinion, a lesser crime, is increased 600%. Is that just because you're enforcing it more?
Yeah, you know, I'm glad you pointed out that you take into account these reports and these statistics, which I've been presenting to you for quite some time. And they're, you know, one of the things you can take from this is that there's no embellishment in these reports. And when we report that, you know, some of these incidents have dropped, that's a reality. And when we report to you that some of these incidents have gone up, that's reality as well. So I want you to know that indeed, public urination arrests have increased because our offices have taken a zero-tolerance policy regarding that particular issue. So that's without a doubt the case.
And I commend you on that, because that's cleaning up the downtown.
Absolutely.
I think that's great.
Correct.
But finally, just in terms of my view on these regulations, as I said before, the city council voted to enact these 9-0. And I think they sent a clear message that this is what they want their downtown to be like. The city council for the city of Lowell wants the downtown to not let anybody in at after 1 a.m. They want the entertainment to stop at 1 a.m. And they want, you know, no reentry, nothing. This is what the city council wants us to do. And as the chief policy-making body, I'm sure they considered it before they took that vote to direct us to do that. And, you know, I'm sure they consulted with other individuals, the police, residents, et cetera. And, you know, it would be my inclination to vote for these regulations. as they are here. I do get concerned relative to the entertainment license. If the Red Sox are playing the Angels next week and it's 1:15 and it's in the 9th inning and Kevin Hayhurst shuts it off in the game, that there's going to be a riot in Brian's Ivy Hall, or maybe not, that's not the correct establishment, but, you know, some place where they're watching it, there's going to be an issue. But, this is what the city wanted. This is what the leaders that we've elected wanted. And, I think I'd be inclined to vote for them.
Well, I've got some genuine concerns about it, okay? First of all, I think the license commission was established by the legislature so that in the event that we don't do the job, in 6 years they can get rid of us. And I don't plan on being back. So that might sound as a lot of relief to somebody. Just a couple of the things that I look at these new things, okay? Special conditions. Who's going to decide special conditions? Okay? Somebody's going to have a special 2 o'clock and everybody else is going to be 1 o'clock. No. Everybody's going to be exactly the same. No exceptions for anything. I don't care if the Pope's coming to town. This is the rule. And if we start to roll this back and we decide that that's what we're going to do and we're going to penalize all these people, we are certainly not going to, go out there and say, well, you got special conditions. You can stay open. No. What's going to, as far as I'm concerned, what's going to go through on these is going through for everyone. That's from every single barroom in the downtown area to the Lowell Memorial Auditorium, to the Spinners, to the Songus Arena, wherever it is. You want to take your wife to a show at the Songus Arena or a game or something, and you want a beer, you get up and you get one and you give it to her and you get back in line. It's going to be the same for everybody. It has to be. That's the only way you can create a level playing field. I look at some of these, and I got a thing here with some, of the complaints. And one of the reasons why I personally have really been upset about this whole thing is I felt that I took a lot of these people down the path. People came in to get a liquor license, and I said to them, don't wait till something goes wrong. The moment you see a problem in your bar, call the police. They're there to help you. We as a license commission, will not use that against you. We will not use that against you if you bring the police in. That's what the police are for, Chief. That's what that 911's for. That's why I'm paying taxes and everybody else in this city, and people are starving trying to earn a living. Okay? Because the police are here there to protect them. They have an investment. The police department has an investment. They have an investment in keeping the businesses going so they can continue to pay their taxes and support the downtown area. We got 4 people, that showed up from the downtown. I thought tonight we would probably have to move this to the Lowell Memorial Auditorium. I genuinely did. I said, they're going to be out. This one's going to go wild. The business people showed up because it's their livelihood. It's dollars and cents out of their pocket. The gentleman said, why can't you do things quicker? Well, the last time we had a complaint, it was 3 weeks before we got it. And then when we got it, we had to notify the people that, we voted to bring them in. So that then stalled it for 2 more weeks. So better than a month went by. I'm just saying, I've read them, I look at them and I say, Big Brother has their hand in everybody's pocket today. Everybody knows how your business should be run. Everybody but you, because you haven't got any brains, because you own the business. And believe me, I bet you all can think about it. You go to a family reunion or something, everybody says, boy, are you lucky you own your own business. Boy, are you lucky. Well, you're not. You're not. And I made a promise first. I was probably the toughest person on this board originally. and some of you know it. But you have to step back and understand that you've got to control your business. All of this in the world, all of the regulations and everything that you can pass and rewrite and reword and whatnot, they're not going to do any good whatsoever if you, the bar owners, don't enforce them. Now, many of the bar owners that were on your, what Commissioner Occasion referred to as the hit list, but Brian, whatever, but anyways, the list that we got with all these things, a lot of those complaints were reported by officers that were working at that time for the establishment, that the establishment had hired on overtime. And something went wrong and the policeman stepped in. I think those establishments should be commended. Commended that they spent that kind of money. Now they're going to be putting out $200 for 4 hours overtime. And we're going to shut them at 1 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, the music goes off. 1:30, there's no more drinks. You know, I'm not saying that it has to run. I'm saying that the responsibility has to lie with the owners. And if the owner can't run his business properly, you bring him here. You have the police department bring him here to us with a solid rock complaint. Not a complaint that says, well, we saw the two guys in the parking lot. They were completely drunk, out of their mind, falling over each other, and we knew something was going to happen. And I said to Captain Webb, why didn't they take these guys into protective custody instead of letting them be there and beat somebody up? It just seemed to me a simple answer. Protective custody, lock them up for a night. Take them up and lock them up. You want to stop all of this nonsense, you got to put some teeth in it. A young lady comes into the bar, she's got a false ID. Let the policeman or the bar owner call the police department, send the wagon, pick her up, take her down, stick her in a cell, call her parents and say, look, we got Janie here. She was over at the Shamrock or one of the places, passing a false ID. You can leave her here for the night. Maybe she'll learn a lesson. Certainly a hell of a lot better than visiting her in a funeral home on a slab on a morgue, because that's what she's going to end up doing. Somebody needs to step in. And it doesn't work just to take, how many owners here take false IDs? How many people here take, how many do you have, Nick?
I turned them into the police. I turned at least on 2 different occasions. The chief knows this. I've turned in over 100 IDs to him.
How many do you have?
Currently, we've probably got about 20, which we'll be turning into the police too.
Yeah. I mean, when they pass a false ID, this gentleman talks about prosecution. You pass a false ID, you lose your driver's license. That's the statute in the state of Massachusetts. You lose your driver's license. Why don't we go after them and get their driver's license? It'll make them sit up and listen. Believe me, we've had our disagreements, and I'm the first one to say, I get carried away about this because I made myself a promise when Dick Johnson asked me to take this job. And that promise was real simple. I owned a funeral home, and nobody would ever walk through that door and say, if you had done your job, my son would be alive. So anybody that's been in here and that knows me knows that when you're wrong, and you're going to pay. And I think I can speak very well for the other 2 commissioners. We can only do what the laws allow us to do. And maybe what this gentleman is saying is true. What good are a whole bunch of laws if they don't get enforced? So I have some real problems with special conditions, with people being exempt. The other one that was in here that I really kind of cringed at was the entertainment. Most of these guys don't get a bar or a dance or going until around 10 o'clock. It's a short period. I mean, I don't know what a band gets now. But I'm sure they don't do it for peanuts. So they got a couple of $100 there, And, people don't. I know your son just graduated from high school, is gonna be going to college. Wait till he comes home at 10 o'clock at night, he say, Dad, I'm going out. Where the hell are you going at 10 o'clock at night? Everybody's home. Oh, that's when they go out. That's when they go out. My daughter would come home and drive me crazy. 10:30, well, I'm going out with the Bridget and Raleigh and it's 10:30, you should be in bed. It doesn't work that way. But I would hope that if somebody caught her passing a false ID, they would slam her. And if you called me, I would say, leave her there for the night. Let her think about it. Because you got to understand the educational process with these youngsters today is far beyond what it ever was with us. They're way out there. They're way out there. And we got to do something to correct it. And I don't think we can correct it by putting more of the burden on the bar owners. That's my opinion.
All right.
If I could there are no special conditions anymore in these regulations.
There isn't?
No.
There's a section that's reserved for them.
But there
I
are
think
no-
you
there are
talked
no-
about
there-
Took that
installing
out?
cameras.
Still on
yeah.
mine that I got today.
Right. Yeah, there are no specified.
Okay,
special
thank you.
conditions. You reserve the right to have them on a case-by-case basis, should they be necessary.
All right. I'm just going to say that, true story. I was in the Army, was deployed, and we had a problem with people who were tired and having accidental discharges with their firearms while they were out on patrol. And some genius came up with the idea that, well, we can prevent accidental discharges by making everybody go out with unloaded weapons and keep their magazines in their pocket until after they're shot at. Believe it or not,
What army
somebody actually proposed that. In the Army, we had a term for these people. We called them the good idea fairies, because they come up with a solution that really works, but doesn't really work. And I'm seeing a lot of that in what we have in front of us, because we have all this conflicting testimony that we have these successful businesses who are already regulating themselves, who are already not having problems, who are called successes, and we're being told that we need to change the way they do business without actually, considering, I think as one speaker tonight called it, their rights. And I understand we had an incident at Fortunato's, okay? Nobody here is ignorant of that fact, okay? But that doesn't mean that the good idea fairy should take over and close down everybody else. I know that if you go by, where is it? Darrell's place, Savannah Palace, okay? I know your crowd doesn't show up until 11:30. All right, if they've got to be out of there by 1 o'clock, if there's no dancing, if there's no entertainment, they'll just go to Worcester, they'll go to Nashua. You'll close. And maybe that's what people want. Maybe people want to see your business go out. I don't know. That's, maybe people haven't even thought about it. Maybe nobody actually did a study and said, what's going to be the economic impact of these proposals? Maybe people just said, it'll make my life easier if you do this, but nobody thought about what happens on the other hand. I don't know, because we've never been given any information that says this was considered. We've never gotten any statistics. We've never gotten any studies on it. We've asked for information, and instead of getting the information we've asked for, we've been given the information that people have wanted to give us. I mean, we asked for the information on February 2nd. Here we are now, it's July 19. We still don't have it. We've gotten plenty of other reports in the interim. My concern is, if you want to say, the hell with you, I'm not giving you the answers, say it. If you're going to say I'm too busy, but I got time for other stuff, well, okay. I get it. I can read between the lines. Look, Lowell's supposed to be a destination city, and if we make ourselves less inviting than the surrounding suburban communities, if, the choice is to go to a place on Bridge Street or a place a little further up Bridge Street, I think Heather said it correctly. People will go someplace else. Now, maybe that's what people want. Maybe that's what the goal is. Maybe the goal is to curtail enough economic activity that people go somewhere else. Maybe we need a couple more closed storefronts in downtown Lowell. Maybe that's really better and will promote more safety. Now, do I live in Lowell? Yeah. Does that give me a very different perspective than some of the people who call it unsafe? Yeah, I mean, I walk around downtown Lowell. I feel safe. And let's be honest, I'm not a young guy. And yet, I feel safe. I don't think that we need to paint with a very broad brush and punish everybody because we had an incident at Fortunato's. Okay? Yes, we had an incident at Fortunato's. Is there anybody here who doesn't know that we had a very serious incident at Fortunato's? But, we didn't have that incident at Garcia Brogan's. We didn't have that incident at Hookslide Kelly's. As a matter of fact, the first report we got about Hookslide Kelly's and incidents they had there included somebody having passed them a fake $20 bill, a detail police officer having arrested somebody for trying to use a fake ID, and a detail officer having arrested somebody for trying to jump the fence and get into the side area. Now, that's an increase in disorder because we had 2 more arrests, but it's really to the credit of Hookslide Kelly's because they had the detail officer down there and actually did something about it, whereas if they had just not had somebody there, they would have had 2 less entries on their record, would have had 2 less dings that everybody would have been talking about, would have had 2 less incidents of downtown disorder reported. And I think, as Commissioner Occasion said, a lot of what we're seeing now in the supposed increase is not from violent crimes, it's from better enforcement of the existing laws in stopping the people who are urinating in public. All right? It's from actually charging them instead of just letting it go. We've taken a zero tolerance approach, and I think that's actually a benefit. All right? Maybe there's better ways to do it, but for now, I don't think that the fact that we're actually enforcing the laws means that we have more crime. It just means that we have more law enforcement. And there's a real big difference when you're looking at those numbers.
I want to interject one thing here. You bring up Fortunato's, and it's very interesting because all of these things started to happen after Fortunato's. And one of the things that I don't know if any of you officers are old enough to remember Butch Paquette. Butch Paquette was a police officer in Lowell. He's retired. Tremendous guy. A whole bunch of us used to always go down to the Golden Gloves and watch the Golden Gloves. And people would get carried away, have a few adult beverages and whatnot. But one night, somebody made a bad decision. And this guy climbed up in the ring. And if it hadn't been for Butch, you would have had a full-blown riot on your hands. I don't know how he did it, but he came down between the thing. He jumped up in the thing. He took the kid down immediately, and back the other people up. Now somebody would say, oh my gosh, but we didn't shut down the Golden Gloves because of it. We didn't change any of the rules, as far as I know, because of it. The police did what we asked them to do. Sometimes we ask them to do things that aren't too pleasant. But, it's kind of like that goes with the job. It's just, it's part of it's not part of the job, but it goes with the job.
I guess the point I was making is that when I asked for information in February, I asked for numbers relative to how many of these arrests are being made by the detail officers. I mean, everybody applauded when we said we got private detail officers making arrests, and that's good because the bars are actually hiring people to do paid private details and getting extra law enforcement on the street at private expense for the public good. And we're getting these arrests made, And I asked for a breakdown. I said, how many of these arrests in that year were made by guys who were on detail? Now, I mean, I know there's a detail schedule, and if you match it up with if they made an arrest while they were there that night, it should be easy to tell, but we don't know those numbers yet. I mean, it's only been since February, and we still can't find out how many of these detail officers were actually effective. Maybe the answer is 0, and we should be telling bar owners, don't bother hiring a detail. Maybe the answer is it's actually very effective, and an increase in these arrests that we're seeing is because you're being very effective. I don't know. We've asked for it, and I don't want to start telling people, shut your business down early, because I don't have numbers to justify taking away everybody's livelihood, and let's be honest, everybody else's entertainment, because there is a significant section of the population that is a little bit younger than our chairman, that doesn't go out until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And if they have to leave at 1, the fights will happen at 1 versus happen at 2. There's a significant number of people who just go out looking for a fight. But I would also say that probably 99% of the people who go out are just looking to have a nice time and stay out with their friends as long as possible. All right? There's a reason they sing songs about closing time and telling people you have to go, you just can't stay here. Okay, that's it. It's not that people are in a hurry to go home. You're not going to force them to go home any earlier. You're going to force them to go somewhere else, and whether that's another town or whether it's another couple of house parties. Now, I don't know enough about the numbers because we didn't get the breakdowns, but my recollection is that when we're having shootings, they're not happening in bars, they're happening at house parties. All right, nobody shot up a bar on New Year's Eve. They shot up a house party on New Year's Eve. So maybe we want to push more house parties, or maybe we want more licensed establishments where there are detail officers and a controlled environment where we know where everybody is. That's a decision that needs to really be looked at. Yes, I know the city council sent us these rules, and yes, I know that they fully endorsed rolling back the hours to 1 o'clock. And yes, I know it was a 9-0 decision, but I have to agree with Chairman Bayless that the reason that a commission was created as an independent body is so that it's not subject to political pressure. And yeah, I know we had an incident at Fortunato's and it was in the paper, and unfortunately a very irresponsible person declared Lowell to be the wild, wild west. I'm sure that was wonderful as far as real estate values. But an incident, an off-the-cuff remark, which I'm sure they probably regret, shouldn't be the basis for a knee-jerk reaction. I don't think I want to turn the good idea fairy loose, and I think that it's our job to be the people who say yes or no, and while I understand there's a policy consideration, I don't think that all of these hearings were held before then. So my inclination is to go against them. There are several in there that I would be in favor of, but I would not be in favor of the rollback in the hours for entertainment. I would not be in favor of the rollback of the hours for service. I would be in favor of the tip certification for training. I do think that the owner of Cappy's had a very good point. 47 years without an incident probably doesn't need tip certification. That would just be a $35 a year online donation being made. I think that these things can be thought through a little bit better. I think that they were kind of rushed out because of the public outcry, and I don't want to blame the paper for being irresponsible, but they printed some pretty stupid things in some pretty big print. And I think we're here because of that.
All right, so with that, I will make a motion to...
You got anything you want to add or say?
Sure. The As far as the council voting to roll back the hours to 1, that vote never took place. The council had voted to endorse the rules and regulations and to send it off to the License Commission for further consideration, which is exactly what ended up happening. And as you know, through the
Just
several...
before you, did
Sure.
the rules and regulations that the council voted to come here have a 1 o'clock rollback?
No, I don't believe it did.
Did it have a 1 o'clock entertainment rollback?
It had a 1 o'clock, right, it had an entertainment, but that's not an entertainment rollback of hours.
And it had a
was
1
just-
o'clock cutoff on patrons.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Right, but again, that's, the patron reentry.
it had a
The point was
1:30
that
rollback
just to
for
be
hours.
clear, the council didn't vote to roll back the hours to 1 o'clock. And as far as the 1:30 so-called rollback of service, I think as Commissioner Occasion had pointed out, it's nothing more than what this body had been requesting of everyone that had come before it getting a license, that the request had been made that those getting a license stop serving 30 minutes prior to the end of the date. And that all that is really happening with respect to that provision, at least in these rules and regulations, is a codification of what had been asked and what, quite frankly, I think had been complied with the vast majority of the establishments. And I think only a few, maybe 1 or 2 or maybe a few more, really hadn't been complying with that request of the commission.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve the regulations as drafted with 2 alterations in section 2.01, patron entry hours. I'd amend it from 1 hour to 45 minutes. And in section 2.02, I'd like to amend, that's entertainment hours, amend that from 1 hour to 45 minutes. Other than that, I vote to, or make the motion to approve the regulations as is.
What was the other one?
Section 2.01 and section 2.02. Just
That's to change them from a 1 hour roll.
45 minutes.
45-minute rollback.
Is there a second? So I guess the motion fails for lack of a second. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Right.